It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here to share a few thoughts about our discussion topic this morning. This morning we're talking about driving culture change, leadership strategies for transformation. Of course, it is no news to us or in different management studies that leadership within organization is quite vital. And Dr. John Maxwell said leadership is about influence. So a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and also shows the way to the people they are leading. So definitely leadership is important within an organization. And then when it comes to change as well within the organization, leaders are expected to be visionary, to have the capacity to build coalitions within the organization, to be able to communicate effectively, show good interpersonal skills, and be able to motivate people. They also must be able to see the big picture, to paint the big picture and share the big picture with the people they are leading within the organization. So that is just talking a bit about leadership as it relates to change. But when it comes to culture change specifically, because of the scope of this presentation, I might not take a lot of time talking extensively or maybe primarily on just the human resources. We say they already have created a gap in that change process, because we need to bring the objectives of the organization into fore, and having that robust understanding of the strategic framework of the organization and the strategic thrusts of that organization. Then the next question will be, how do we behave in order to achieve the strategy that we have in front of us? So ultimately, culture change is about aligning the organization's values and practices with its strategic objectives. So basically, the culture of the organization is what creates that environment for the strategy of the organization to be implemented successfully. So we say the performance of the organization, the outputs of the organization, or the outcomes, the value that comes out of the organization will be after creating a synergistic relationship between the strategy and the culture of the organization. We say culture and strategy are like two wheels of a bike that needs to be aligned and balanced. The strategy of the organization would give the direction, but culture powers that strategy. Culture is the energy that drives the corporate performance of the organization to where it needs to be. In this illustration you're seeing, so the strategy is the front wheel. For those who are familiar with the bike, the front wheel is how you steer the bike in the direction you need it to go. And then the back wheel, the rear wheel, is where the engine is connected to that drives the bike to where it needs to go. And guess what? The driver or the rider sitting on the bike are the leaders of the organization, because they steer the organization in the direction it needs to go. So there needs to be a significant degree of alignment among these three concepts: leadership, strategy, and culture. When thinking about culture change within the organization, these three things need to be put on the table and considered extensively. The importance of the culture of the organization, and they need to be the one who drives that the culture that needs to happen, and then that culture that they are trying to create needs to be that which is aligned with the strategy of the organization. So having this understanding when embarking on culture change, from our standpoint, working in a consulting firm that deals extensively with organizational change, culture change within the organization, and intercultural management, we say that there are three important things that leaders need to take note of when embarking on culture change, or leaders need to ensure to have. The first is high level of trust within the organization. There needs to be significant trust in the organization. People within the organization need to trust that when you're telling me to change, they need to have significant level of trust in the leaders of the organization that they will do whatever they say they will do. Why this point is particularly important, and stressing a bit on just this first point on the high level of trust, is culture change, we say, happens through change in behaviors and attitudes. So we change our behaviors, we change our attitudes, whether within a societal context or within an organizational context. The way we do things, the way we respond to things, the way our proclivities to different stimuli within the environment. And to steer those changes in behaviors and attitudes, those changes come from social control. And social control is basically rewards and sanctions. It could be formal rewards and sanctions. It could be informal rewards and sanctions. Talking a bit about this, the behaviors within our culture, within our organization, we reward it. We reward it significantly, we reward it consistently, and we reward it quickly. The behaviors and attitudes we do not want to continue within our organization, that we want to deter people from carrying out, we sanction it. We sanction it significantly, appropriately to match whatever that action is. We sanction it consistently, and we sanction it quickly. Now, the ability to carry this out, for this to happen and bring about the culture change that the organization needs, there has to be trust. There has to be trust that when the organization say we reward this behavior, members of the organization needs to believe that indeed the organization rewards this behavior. And if I do what the organization say to do, the actions they have listed behind that behavior will follow. And that if I carry out the behaviors that has been said will be sanctioned, that the organization will do what it says it will do. And mostly we say the onus of building trust lies significantly on the leaders of the organization. The next component we say that is necessary for successful culture change is there needs to be minimum level of anxiety and nervousness within the organization. There needs to be an air of psychological safety within the organization. People need to not feel that they're going to be scapegoated by participating in the change process. And this happens significantly sometimes when it happens that some leaders are paying only lip service to the change. And so sometimes the members of the organizations are confused, because it seems as though sometimes when they try to align with the direction of change and some of the initiatives for change, culture change within the organization, it starts to look like a witch hunt within the organization. So leaders need to create an environment where there is minimum level of anxiety and nervousness. We need to allow people to be free to participate and engage in change. And then the third component, we say there needs to be a willingness to change. The leaders need to first be willing to change, and then create a sense of urgency within the organization that motivates others to want to change. So basically they need to first exemplify or first get into themselves that desire to want to change, and then carefully communicate that desire, selling the idea of change, creating that picture of change clearly and selling it to the people that they lead, creating that sense of urgency within the organization. So high level of trust within the organization, minimum levels of anxiety and nervousness. That's an environment where people feel psychologically safe, and then a willingness to change on the part of the leaders first, and then on the parts of the people. Because many times in culture change, we find in different instances that the leaders expect the people, the employees, to change, and they do not like to lead that change by exemplifying the change and changing themselves. So that needs to happen. So wrapping it all together and saying when leaders or when leading culture change within the organization, starting out from understanding the strategic framework and ensuring that the direction of culture change is in the direction of the strategy of the organization, creating that alignment. So whatever the initiatives for the culture change would be, and they will be different for different organizations, because what works for one organization may not work for another organization. So whatever the initiatives for change, the leaders need to ensure that they communicate it clearly and consistently. What are we changing? Why are we changing? Over and over again, because culture is about collective programming. So that consistency in messaging and sharing the ideas and concept for the culture change needs to happen. And then the leaders need to participate actively and visibly. We say that leaders are the custodians of the culture of the organization. So they need to lead the culture change visibly. People need to see the leaders of the organization exemplifying the change they are telling the rest of the organization to carry out. So that has to happen. And then the leaders need to be consistent in the rewards and sanctions. So whatever we are rewarding, we need to reward it consistently, regardless of who the reward goes to, whatever their level is. And whatever we are sanctioning, we need to be consistent at it. If we don't maintain that consistency with the rewards and sanction, we start to erode trust within the organization, and that begins to impact on the pace of the culture change. And the final point I'll give you is to leverage some societies are more collectivist than others. Some societies are more long-term oriented than others. So it is important for leaders to
Michael, so thank you. I think we might just had some signal interruption there, but a very, very fine presentation and certainly loads of food for thought. And we're starting to see some of the questions come through. But before we get to the questions, what I'm going to do now is, Lucy, if you'd like to just offer just a few minutes of reflection, and then we'll take Q&A from there. Lucy, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michael, for that insightful presentation. Please confirm you can all hear me. Okay, great. All right. So as we reflect, I'm going to just be speaking on a couple of things that I think as leaders resonate with us as leaders and also agents of change. So Mr. Michael earlier had mentioned a couple of things, but because of our time, I'm going to just breeze in on a couple of them, which I would be saying leadership trust is very, very critical. There is no culture change that can happen without trust, right? And I hear change, culture change, people are asking, why do we want to change the culture? Of course, we are evolving, and culture is a system and not stagnant. So as we work and our workforce changes, the demand is on us to begin to know and understand how best to manage. So we're not changing from the strategy, we're not changing from the original goal, but we're changing just so that we are able to work better, achieve better outcomes, and also align with the business outcomes. So leadership in managing change, culture change is very, very critical. And it is not about reinventing the wheel, but about ensuring that the wheel keeps moving in the right direction. And we cannot do this alone. Like he had said, it's participatory. You need to actively have everyone involved. Culture is not addressing a tree, it is addressing a forest. So knowing that you require perspective from different angles to understand what and how. So if there is no, of course, there would have been an misalignment to begin to see the need to change something. So if there is a misalignment around maybe what we perceive in the beginning of the year and then not going the way we expect, there's a need to call ourselves to order and then reassess. And in reassessing, you're getting feedback, you're getting different method of getting feedback, and then you're acting on the feedback. It is very critical when people see that their feedbacks are, are carried out or accepted or considered, and then they are seen as part and parcel of that culture. So recently we had our strategy session for 2025, and with a lovely culture that it currently is, it wasn't enough because with the new year, it's a different challenge. And then this time around, we co-designed a culture that we look forward because we have new workforce, a lot of our staffs are new, and then the understanding and perspectives are also very new. So we needed to align, and in aligning to having a robust understanding and having everybody's part, we needed to have how they feel and see or experience the culture within the past period of time that they've been with us. And with their feedback, we got different, insights on what we didn't even know were issues in the culture. We thought it was good, we thought it was rich, but with their feedback, we got areas that we are now tweaking in the new year, right? As little as meetings, as little as time of meetings, mannerism, different things, everything came everybody had to make their contributions. And at the end, we had that result to say, this is how we are going to be looking at it. Without trust, it is also very difficult. So Mr. Michael speaks on alignment. So it is not enough to say, do as I say. Everybody is looking out for leaders that will do as they do. So if you are not actively doing what you say, people will not do. So you need to be leaders. We need to be leaders that is doing what we say we want to do or we want to see. Every leader is expected to display the attribute of a change agent. I, not even knowing, I got a recognition of a change champion for diligence and a couple of other values for different people. So Mr. Michael also mentioned recognizing, appreciating, and also reinforcing, sanctions. I know it is important. Because of time, I'm just going to say this, that it is important not, if you have a big picture of a culture, articulating it is critical, helping them see what is in need for them, the why that has to happen, and also helping them see their contribution to it, and having them contribute to it goes a long way. It does just change the narrative or change is happening. They want us to, but it is happening, like we are involved. So they carry it, they run with it. It becomes a lifestyle, the way they do, the way they act, the way they implement and do the things that relates to the work. And seeing more to that is, I'll summarize this because of time on three: the hand, the heart, and the head, the hands, and the hand model, which is if you address the head by answering all those questions and feedback as you get it from understanding what is not working well, what we need to do right, and what we need to stop. If you get this feedback, it helps you to get their buy-in, and then you win their hearts. And when you win their hearts, their mind is like everybody's running it. Also, in identifying their heart and all this, it's also critical to identify the culture influencers. There are influencers within the organization. I don't know, my organization is not so big, but for those that have big organizations, you can begin to identify those influencers that when they say something, they can change the mindset of every other person. Draw them close, get their buy-in, and then you will be surprised how everybody will buy into the change. And then it becomes like everybody's consign and not just leadership. Yes, it's driven from the leadership, but if you have them co-create it, they take ownership of it, and they can show a high level of commitment to driving this business outcome with that change. And it reflects in all that they do. So without wasting time, I don't know if I've exhausted the 5 minutes, but we'll wait for other questions. Thank you once again for having me.
Thank you, Lucy, and really, really powerful reflection. So thank you. That was beautiful. And Michael, you might not have heard, but just grateful thanks for your presentation as well. I think we lost your signal just towards the end. But grateful. So between Michael and Lucy, then, so we've got a range of questions here, and the first comes from Oluchi. So it says, since we sanction behavior that does not align with organizational culture, why don't organizations reward quickly behavior that aligns with the organizational culture? And Michael, I think that sort of spoke to where you were going, and Lucy, you drew some of that out as well. Michael, just your thoughts around rewarding good behavior. I think that's where the question goes.
Yeah, thank you so much, George, and thank you, Oluchi, for this question. Indeed, we find those instances. Of course, we cannot generalize. There are indeed organizations that reward quickly behaviors that align with the culture of the organization. So that it's important to not generalize that. But in instances where some organizations don't reward quickly the behaviors that aligns with organizational culture, there could be a variety of reasons. First could be that there hasn't been an intentionality in defining what the behaviors, the optimal behaviors that align with our organizations are as an organization. So we don't have it defined, and then when people behave in such ways, because it's not defined, sometimes it is not recognized. Because we never set out to recognize it in the first place. It's not defined. And then it makes it a bit arbitrary because it's not defined. So that lack of definition of what is the culture here and what are the behaviors that aligns with the culture that we need in order to thrive as an organization. So that definition needs to happen because it helps in the social control bit of it, which is rewards and sanctions. And then for many organizations, the concept of reward is usually tied to financial rewards. And depending on the economic situation of the organization, sometimes it's easier for an organization to shy away from rewards when they only consider rewards to be financial, particularly if there's not enough economic means within the organization. So it happens that way, that it appears as if rewards are not carried out quickly because first, definition it's not. Two, because rewards are usually just thought of as financial. So those are just two thoughts I'll leave out there. So we have our thoughts.
Amazing, Michael. Thank you. Thank you for that. Lucy, within the core components of leadership, which one do you think needs more attention? So core components of leadership, which needs more attention? Your thoughts?
Okay, core component of leadership. So I think I might need a bit of context.
So I suppose we talk about capabilities here, wouldn't we? So do you think it's essential for leaders to have cultural intelligence? Let's do it that way around.
Absolutely, absolutely, very, very critical. Very, yes, it is very important for every leader to be culture intelligent. Like it's very, very critical, and that is also helping you appreciate everybody's perspective, not discriminating. Not it also helps in churning out the type of policies that helps everybody understand the way to manage and respect each other based off on their culture. So
indeed,
that every leader is cultural sensitive. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's really, really helpful. And I suppose it also talks to recruitment practices. And so what kind of culture, what kind of leaders one recruits in an organization. Culture is a collective programming. Can you please expand on this a little more? Michael, I think that might have been your comment.
Yes, thank you for that question, John. Yes, so Professor Hofstede actually gave this definition of culture in general as the collective programming of the mind that distinguishes the members of a group or society from another. So, collective programming refers to the fact that one, culture is always a collective concept, right? It's always about the collective. If it is about an individual, we say it's a personality concept. If it is about the group, we'd say it's a culture concept. So culture is always about the group. Right? It's a group behavioral kind of thing. So that's the collective bit of it. Programming suggests that culture is learned. We are not born with culture. Culture is not inherent to all humankind. We learn culture from the society we grew up in, from our families, from the organizations we join, from the different places we socialize in. So that programming happens there. So when we say culture is a collective programming, it means those behaviors, those norms, those values, those practices that we have learned as a group together, and then we start living out and acting out. So that's how we define culture. So that's what culture, being a collective programming, refers to. I hope that helps.
Amazing. It absolutely helps, and thank you to you both. So I think we've sort of hit our time limit today. But having said that, there are other questions in the Q&A, and I suppose the offer is there, Michael and Lucy. If anyone has any questions, they could direct them to you directly. Would that be okay? And then also noting both of you are live on LinkedIn. Saw your profiles, so if folk wanted to reach you there, they could do the same. Would that be okay?
That would be amazing. That was fine. Yeah.
Okay, absolutely amazing. Very good. So just to note then, next week, Good Morning BSN, the 59th edition of this will be performance leadership. So this is team building and collaboration. And the members who will be contributing to that is Funke Ukaya and Alumna Quentua. Okay, so we look forward to that. But folks, thank you very much for your attendance today. Michael and Lucy, you were stars. It was an amazing performance, and grateful to you both.